Alright, Maki. I'm going to play some live poker and then we'll take some of the stuff that I was teaching you and hopefully I'll be able to sort of walk you through my thought process. I'm just going to speak out loud. Um, so I'm going to fold this because this was open to 4x by this guy over here, and I looked at his stats. This is something we're going to get into later, but you can on different poker sites you can see different stats about. So he's got very what I call tight stats, 18, 13. Again, we'll explain it a little bit more in detail. Well, I might as well now because we're here. So basically, VPIP is voluntarily put in the pot. That's what percentage of the time he's either calling or raising. Um, and 18% is like less than 1 out of 5 hands he's playing. And then pre-flop raise is what percentage of the time he's raising. So that's also very, very small. So anything under 20 VPIP, I'd consider like quite a tight player. And pre-flop raise being that low as well is a very, very tight kind of passive, but probably just a very nitty. They're called nits, N-I-T. It's a short form for like a super tight player that only plays the best possible hands. So when I get to a table like this, first thing I do, I would click on everyone. I'd look at stack sizes. So you can buy in for 20 chips, and I'd look and I'd see, okay, anyone that's in this 12 chip, 18 chip, and they're not reloading their stack is very likely a weaker player. Like this is 10 cent, 5 cent, 10 cent. So most of these players are going to be weaker players. We have 6, 7 offsuit, easy fold. So I would say, okay, well, this guy's only got 14 in chips. He hasn't reloaded. So what I can do is I can add more chips to the table and get back up to 20. And normally, if you're a pro or a regular player, you want to have as many chips in front of you as possible because it just allows you to win the most money. So when I see players like this guy, Korean Jesus, with 14 in chips, I know he's pretty weak. Or I don't know, but I have a slight feeling he's pretty weak. So I'd look around and be like, okay, not a whole lot of good players at this table. And then I start looking at their stats. Okay, this guy is super loose, 44%, and he only raises 9%. So he is a very loose and very passive player. This guy is a very loose, 60%, and a little bit more aggressive player. But he's a super loose player. So both these players we can target as potential good opponents. I got to pause because I have a good hand. So I'm going to raise to 4x because I'm in an early position and this is a softer table. Softer means you're going to get more calls more likely. So I want to sort of punish my opponents for um, everything. And now we have one of the fishiest players in the pot. So we have top set. We're just going to be betting on all 3 streets for value. We don't want a heart to come off. That would be a little bit scary. We get quads on our first hand. Now we're okay with the heart coming off. So we're going to figure out how we can try and get as much money in the pot as we can. So we can maybe shove the river. So we're trying to make the pot nice and big to see what he does. But again, I might bet a little bit differently against different opponent styles. It's kind of early to tell what our getting quads is not very common. But what I might have wanted to do in that last hand was bet a smaller amount, but I was just getting greedy and I just wanted to get all the money in by the river. Um, but yeah, so that's anyway, back to it. So I'm looking around. This guy's obviously an absolute whale. So the terms for poker opponents. So you have tag, which is sort of what I am and what I want you to be is a tight and aggressive player. You have a lag, which is a loose and aggressive player, LAG. You have a nit, which is a super tight and generally passive player, which is likely this person. So they're gonna sit and wait around for the best possible hand. Sometimes old people at casinos are nits. Then you have a fish, which is just a loose and passive player, and then you have a whale, and a whale is like the ultimate goal. They're really loose, like this would kind of be a whale, usually spewy and wide. And they're gonna call you with anything, and they're gonna get their money in with bottom pair and all this stuff. So, all right, so here's an example. We have a mid position raise from a whale. We have a decent player that's called. We have a suited connector. We're in the big blind, so we're going to call. This hand likes to be multi-way, so we hope this guy called. We want to go 4-way to the flop. And then we have absolute 3 opponents. We have absolutely nothing. There's nothing I'm doing but checking and folding on this particular board. Easy peasy. All right, I get queen 4 offsuit. It's just a trashy hand. Usually any face card with a little card that's not suited is going to be garbage. So we'll continue around. This guy's not horrible. He's playing a 30-15. He's a little bit loose, but not that bad. This person is a 43-13, so again, a very loose passive player. Playing 4 out of 10 hands is ridiculous. This is a super tight person. And that person actually has decent stats. This is the only person I'd say at this table that is not a terrible player. So I would certainly have some respect for them when they get in the pot. So step 1 is looking around, seeing what the opponents are. So here we have a pretty shitty hand, but if everyone folded to us, we might raise it just to try and play a pot against this terrible player. Both of these are terrible players. But obviously this person opened to 50 cents, so we're just going to fold. Sorry, 5x. I'll start using the right terms. See, 5x the raise. Now he's continuation betting about 33%, taking it down. So that's interesting. So here we have a weak ace, but we're in the cutoff. So it's very borderline. I think if it's folded to me, I'll try and play maybe a few more hands than I normally would just to get more action. So everyone's folded to us. We're in the cutoff. We're going to raise with a weak ace. We just want to hopefully either take it down or get against one opponent. But you can see this is a very loose game. So we have 2 opponents. It's a very wet board, very coordinated board. We don't have anything. So we're basically just going to check and give up on this board. I think it would just be kind of throwing money away to try and bluff terrible players. So we're going to wait till we actually connect with a hand before doing anything. So again, let's look at the nuts. Queen, king is the nuts right here. And then there's obviously a flush draw. You can see these guys just going at it. But poker's patience, really. Poker's patience and discipline and not getting frustrated if you have things sort of go against you. This is Jack Deuce, terrible hand. I once had about a year ago, I was at the poker room with Uncle Johnny, and I think I went 3 hours and 15 minutes before I played a hand because I was just getting the worst of the absolute worst hands. And anytime I did have a hand that was even somewhat good, there'd be like a raise and a 3-bet before it even got to me, so I couldn't play. But I was patient, and yeah, I won a couple grand over that weekend. So patience pays off. So even at this stake, I was telling you that you don't want to play penny tables because the opponents are bad. Like, these guys are pretty bad. Like, people are opening large and calling 3-bets and just doing all sorts of crazy stuff. So let's look at the nuts here. 2 queens. There's the nuts. There's a flush draw. There's some little bit of straight draws. Nothing crazy. This guy let out on the turn after checking the flop. This guy shoved. Lord knows what he has. Hope he doesn't bust before we get to take his money. I mean, he could have a queen with a flush draw, something like that. See what Abe wants to do. Oh no. Good. Give the money to that guy. Alright, Jack deuce suited. Even though it's suited, it's still a trashy hand. Nothing to do but fold here. We're just gonna wait. So again, the sign of a weak player is to just limp as the first person in. And we're gonna go three-way to the flop. Alright, so this is a very loose and passive table. That's what I would say about this table. Alright, we got two tens, and I'm going to go a little more because this guy has posted. So I'm actually going to go 6x just to try and get as few opponents as I can. Obviously, it didn't work. This guy does a massive 3-bet. I don't. 10 is a little bit soft to jam. So I will just call here, but it's a little bit of an awkward spot here. I think if I had jacks plus, I'd probably jam, or at least get it all in. Okay, so we flop top set. It's very coordinated. It's all suited. We're going to check raise and try and get it in. We're pretty happy with this. He could easily have ace king, ace queen. He could have, he checked it back, which is interesting. So now that he checked it back, we're going to try and bet strong. I mean, if he flopped a flush, he flopped a flush. I'm never folding. But I don't think he'd be trapped in on the flop. He might have two kings, to be honest. The only hand that he'd really check back the turn. And he just called the turn, which means he doesn't have like a flush, for example. So we're just going to get it all in. Hope he can't fold kings. Maybe kings with the king of heart. That would be interesting. Because I don't think he would check back an ace here. But anyway, he just folded, so I guess that's good. I kind of wanted to see what he had so we could see if the read was right. I'm 2 for 2 with flopping sets, and I want you to know that flopping sets doesn't happen that often. You only have a 1 in 8 chance, I think, of flopping is that. Okay, so we have two terrible players who limped in. This person has raised. We're going to call here and hope that both of them call as well, because queen 10 off, it's not a great hand, but it does okay against multiple opponents. Again, we have 3 opponents. We flop absolutely nothing. We basically have a backdoor flush draw if it comes diamond diamond and a backdoor straight draw, but nothing else. So we're just gonna let it go. Excuse me. That would have been a good turn card for us. Would have given us a straight draw. So you can see how terrible this guy just pure bluffed with 5 high on that flop, which is insane. So we have a weak ace. We're against the wild man and out of position. We're just gonna let it go. If this were suited, I would definitely call because I'd want to get like 4-way with the suited ace. But an offsuit ace out of position. It's just a little weak to be playing. But we're already 100% targeting Korean Jesus as like the guy who's gonna give us lots of chippies. And some of these other Lucy players as well. Excuse me. So usually I like to try and get reads on my opponents, like what hands they could possibly have. Sometimes when you're playing against like really bad players, they play so weirdly that it's hard to get reads. They could have almost anything, which is usually a good sign. But as you get against better opponents, you're gonna be able to like put them on hand ranges. All right, so 6-8 offsuit on the button. It's a terrible hand. Just gonna fold. And one of the things, obviously, you could see that Korean Jesus was in a pot with 5 deuce, so he's liable to play just about any hand. So it's another sign that you, if you see one of your opponents opening up a 5 deuce, you could be like, okay, they're officially a terrible player. I think because I have the sort of basics of poker down fairly well, most of my focus is just on reading opponents and hand ranges and stuff, trying to figure out what they might have. Oh, you might want to see my stats because I clicked on everyone else to see everyone else's stats. So my stats over 6,000 hands are 21-16. I could probably be a little bit looser. Like I could probably play a few more hands. Maybe closer to 25, 25-20. But you can see again, I'm tight and I'm aggressive. Sort of, if you see someone in between like 20 and 25 and 15 and 20, that's usually a decent player. All right, 10 deuce is just a terrible hand. I want to get this guy's chippies too. Okay, we got a big 3-bet here from the big blind, who's not terrible. So he's very likely to have a super strong hand, like ace king or I guess nines. I think that's a strong hand, but it's not crazy strong. And this 18-13, super tight. I would have respected his raise quite a bit. 8-9 suited, we can play. We're in middle position. I probably fold this in a lot of situations, but again, I'm trying to show you a little bit. We got 3-bet by this guy with a big stack and then cold called, so we're certainly not folding. We're calling 60 cents and the pot's 250. We're out of position against the raiser, but we have position on one player. We flopped a gut shot, so a 7 gives us the nuts, and we have a backdoor flush draw as well. So we're just going to start by checking and see how much he bets on the flop, or if he bets on the flop. He bets about half pot. I think this is a reasonable spot to call once. We're getting pretty good price, and I think we can get his whole stack if we hit our cards. So this would be an opportunity for implied. I think when the board pairs, it actually makes our hand a lot worse because now if we hit a 7, it's not the nuts anymore. He bets again, so we're just going to let it go. I mean, that's such a strong line. He 3-bet before the flop, and then he bet on the flop, and then he bet on the turn. So it's unlikely that he was bluffing there. So who's this guy? So I'm gonna call here, but this is actually probably a fold, even though it's a pretty strong hand. This guy is like got decent numbers, and he's in early position, so it's a lot of alarm bells are ringing. His range from this position is going to be quite small. But I think because this game's quite loose, and I knew that there'd be a lot of opponents. Again, these weaker players. We flopped a gut shot, but obviously it's a straight draw. So we need a 10, but it's even worse than that because it'd have to be a 10 that's not a club. So we're just gonna fold. So you can see why passive play, and I'm not suggesting I shouldn't have played passive, but I played that 8-9 kind of passive. I played that ace jack passive. I just called. I think that's what we want to avoid is playing passive. We want to lean towards playing aggressive, and that's where you win more money. So there's been a raise, there's been a 3-bet. I have terrible hands, so I'm just going to fold. What are we going? 20 minutes now. So I'll play like I don't know, say 10 or 12 or 15 more hands. See if we get an interesting spot. Queen 5 is a trashy hand. Cat guy's another fish player, 40-9, so he's loose and he's passive. That's what we like to see. Guy seems to be decently aggressive after the flop. Something to keep note of. We can continue to try and look at flops too. Look at what's the nuts, what's the best hand. All that stuff. We're just folding the 5-7 offsuit on the button. And that the nuts on that board is 10 king for the nuts straight. There's obviously a flush draw. There's some straights. This guy just shoved. Huge overbet on the flop. Oh, I need another coffee. 7-10 offsuit. Another trashy hand. Oh my god. Fish 1 calling, fish 2 calling, and somewhat fish 3 calling. The nuts is 2 jacks. The flush draw, there's a kind of a weird straight draw. 3-4, 3-5, 4-5 are all straight draws. Very unlikely or less likely for your opponents to have those little tiny baby cards. Okay, this is a good hand. We got the queenies. So we're going to raise. We'll do the big 40-cent raise. Doesn't really make much of a difference here, but we're in early position. We're hoping someone re-raises. So there's an overcard on the flop. This is kind of dependent. I'm going to do a small bet. I check here quite often, but I do think I want to get. This guy is so loose that he could easily have just split anything. I'm going to bet small again on the turn. I don't know here. He just called. He could have. If my hand's not beating anything of value, I might turn it into a bluff catcher. This is awkward. Yeah, it's a tricky spot. I got to be right about 1 out of 3 times. Oh, we'll see. Okay, so that was pretty good. Like that shows you an example. He called on the flop with an ace, like literally 1 overcard. And I would not normally raise this, but this is gonna be last hand, so I figured I'd get in there with the last hand. Yeah, so that, like, I'm trying to look at the hand history. So the flop was king 7 jack, and he called with ace 2. So when I bet that flop, he had 3 outs. Yeah, I gotta describe this hand. So, all right, I'll play a little bit more. I'm kind of pissed that I lost $10 to these monkeys. Okay, so let's talk about that queen's hand. So I bet the flop. It's a decent chance I had the best hand. When my opponent calls with ace deuce, it's tremendously valuable to us. It's a fantastic sign that okay, so let's talk about sorry, my brain's a little bit fried here. I can't multitask. All right, we flop top pair. We're in the big blind, so we got a free look at the flop. We're just gonna bomb it. We turn 2 pair. It's a really good turn for us. We're just gonna bomb it again. And I'm gonna bomb it again. 2, 3, 4, 5. He's got 4 or 5. Good luck to him. Yeah, so Equity, that's what I want to talk to you about. I'm going to fold the queen 5 offsuit. So equity in that spot. Going to fold the 4-8. So equity in that spot. So I have queen queen versus ace deuce off. The flop was king jack 4, let's say. So when I bet flop, so if I bet like $10, let's say, and player calls, then my opponent has 3 cards, 3 aces left to give him the winning hand. So what percentage of that bet that I made is mine? In theory, right? If the hand ends right there, or if the hand goes out, there's no more betting all the way to the river. What percentage of that money is mine? So in that situation, he's got about 6% chance to win, and I have about 94% chance to win. See if he's got 3 aces that'll help him, and any other card will not help him. So that means of the $10 that I bet, of the $20 pot, I have 94% equity in it, times 0.94. So about $18.80 of value in that $20 pot. So that's a way of looking at equity. So even though the hand lost when I bet that money on the flop, I had $18.80 equity in that bet. 3-7 off, just going to fold. Now conversely, when the ace came on the turn, now the board is ace, what was the ace, king jack 4, and I bet whatever I bet, a third pot. So let's imagine I bet another $10. So now I bet 10, and he called 10, right? Now I only have, well, what's funny is I actually have a 10, so I got 4 outs for a 10, and I got 2 outs for the queen, so I have 6 outs. So I have 12% equity. So of that $10, basically, you know, $88.8 of that is my opponent's equity, and then I have like $1, whatever, 20 equity. So I didn't know these things. I didn't know what his hand was until the river, but that gives you an example of how equity works in the hand. So the more times you can bet and get money in, queen 7 is just an easy fold. The more times you can bet and get money in with higher equity than your opponent, the better. And when you have less equity than your opponent, the worse. So a quick rule of thumb for calculating odds is this. Take your number of outs. So how many cards to give you best hand? Flush, draw. So let's say you have ace 4 of diamonds. Flop is 8 diamonds, 10 diamonds, 7 clubs, right? So you have a flush draw. Now you there are 9 diamonds left. It's 13 in the deck minus the 2 you have, minus 2 on the board. It's 9. So you have 9 outs. And so with 2 cards to come, you multiply your outs by 4, which is 36. So you have a 36% chance of hitting flush by a river. Now if you're on the turn, so let's say you get to the turn, and the turn is like the jack of spades, so you don't have the flush. Now there's only 1 card to come, so you still have 9 outs, but there's only 1 card to come. So now you have 9 times 2, or 18% chance of hitting your flush by the river. Now if you look at this flop and you're like, okay, well maybe my ace would also be good. So if the turn or the river was an ace, then I'd have top pair, and it's probably going to be the best hand. Well, there's three aces. Okay, 3-6 suited is trash. There's 3 aces, and there's 9 diamonds, right? So now you have 12 outs. And then 12, 24, you have 48%. So that lets you mess around with some math to see your percentage chance. So sometimes you could see a bet and you could say, okay, I have 8 outs, let's say. So I have a 32% chance of hitting my hand by the river, but they bet $3 and the pot is $10. So I have to risk $3 to win $13. So that would be 3, 6, 9, 12. So I only need to win 20% of the time in order to be profitable. And because I have 32% chance of making my hand, it's an easy call. But if they were to bet $10 to win $13, well, now the math goes all sorts of different. So you can use your outs, you're calculating your outs, and then the size of the pot and the size of the bets and all that to sort of do a little bit of math. There's some math in poker, and this is sort of a pretty basic level. Oops. All right, so we got 5x open. We've got 1, 2 callers. We have queen 8 offsuit. I think if I was suited, I would call. Maybe queen 9 or queen 10 I'd call, but queen 8's a little bit too weak. And that would be, again, I just talked about odds. I had to call 40 cents to win 195 was in the pot. So 40 to 195, I'm getting 5 to 1 pot odds, or I only need to win the hand 20% of the time to justify that call, if that makes sense. I wasn't planning on talking about pot odds and percentages and all this stuff, but why not while we're waiting here? So not really paying attention to the players that much, but I should probably be trying to get reads on these guys. That was my point of this. Okay, pocket deuces. So this is a hand that you're going to want to have lots of people in the hand. You want to flop your 3 of a kind, and then you want to have someone flop like a pair, and then you want to get all their chips. So it went raise, call, call. This guy who is ridiculously tight raised again, but we're going to do a ridiculous thing and call this huge raise just because I know it's going to go 5 or 6 way. I just really hope that none of these players like re-raises to like $10 or something, because that would be dumb. But my hope is it goes call, call, call. Okay. Now we're going to flop a set again, which is ridiculous. Now it's all diamonds, which is pretty bad. But we're going to try and... Okay, we've already got someone all in, so it's just a no-brainer. We're never folding this. There's a small chance with 4 people we're against a flush, but even if we're against the absolute best flush, we're going to have outs, quite a few outs to improve. So we're going to go all in 3 ways. Now there's a lot of cards we got to probably fade. This guy's got aces. This one's got... So we're just going to take it all down. See, that was actually a beautiful read. Okay, we didn't win that one. That was such an interesting hand. The worst hand. Actually, let's use the Hold'em calculator to figure that one out. That was fun. Because I was a massive favorite. Okay, we're going to 3-bet a suited ace here. Oh, I didn't see this guy raise already. Yeah, okay, I'll remember that hand. It was pretty cool with the 2s. I'll keep it up over here. I'm just going to leave after this hand so we can calculate that one hand because it was super neat. Okay, now we just flop the absolute nuts with 3 opponents. So our hope here is just to get all the money in because we have like the board on lockdown. There's really it's going to be really hard for opponents to have anything too big, but we are going to raise. I guess we don't have that many chips, so we don't have to worry too much about not getting it all in. Sorry, I'm talking all over the place. It's very hard to talk and do this all at once. Oh no, we're gonna lose our customer? You got this. You got it. There you go. I'm just gonna bet small on the turn because we got the river to get it all in. I want to keep him in. Now that he min raised, he's never folding, so we're gonna get it in here. And fortunately, he didn't river full house again, so he won that pot. All right, let's just leave this table, and then we're gonna pull up Poker Stove and show you that one hand. Queen 10, the deuce. All right. So this is a perfect example of how to use this Poker Stove. So the one player had aces, so aces, and I knew they had either aces or kings because their pre-flop raise was 2%, so they literally only raised with aces. But I also knew because they had such a strong hand that if I did flop three of a kind, that there's no way they're folding. So that was my mindset behind calling with those twos. So I had twos, the other player had queen, 10 offsuit. So those are the three hands. So you can see aces is a big favorite if we went all in before the flop, but we didn't. The board was queen, deuce, and then some random card. So on this flop, when I have the deuces and I'm against aces, I was almost a 90% favorite to win that pot. So with my three of a kind there, and the hand that won had a one, so only 1 out of 50 times that guy who had queen 10 won. So if I look at the equity of that hand, going back to this thing, which is equity, I don't remember how much the pot was, but let's say everyone was in for 20 bucks. So there's a $60 in the pot. Then I would have had 60 times 0.889. So I had $53 equity when I got all my money in on that board. And then Queen 10 had 1.7, had $1.02 equity. So even though the Queen 10 won, this is where the math really sort of gets funky. I'm ecstatic. That hand makes me so happy because I got my money in, getting 2 to 1. I only risked $20 to win 60, and I had almost a 90% chance of winning. So even though I lost, the fact that I lost doesn't matter really because over the long run, if I keep getting my money in with a 90% chance of winning, I'm going to make tons and tons and tons of money. So the fact that the worst hand won doesn't bother me because that's just a single hand. But meanwhile, there's thousands and thousands of hands play. So this is a really good little piece of software to sort of, if you're in a hand, you're like, ooh, I don't know what my equity was there. Like the other hand that we just played, we can actually see what chance he had of hitting there. So I have ace 7, or let's choose, hang on, an ace 7 of hearts, right? And we'll clear that. The opponent had ace deuce of spades, I think. Okay, whoops, ace deuce of spades. So we can see this on all three streets. So, hey, ace deuce of spades. So before the flop, oh, I keep hitting the wrong button. Okay. Okay. We'll clear this one. Oops. So before the flop, when I 3-bet, remember at 3-bet, I had about 80% equity. So that's pretty awesome. So that would mean I bet $9. He bet 3 and I bet 9. So I get 80% of that $9 when that happened and he called. And then when the flop came and I flopped a flush, remember that? That was pretty cool. So the flop was jack high, like jack, I don't know, jack 7, 5, let's say, all hearts. And he, oh no, it's jack 7 deuce because he, jack, we'll say jack 8 deuce. He flopped a pair. So now we can see what's my equity. Oh my goodness, look at that. So I have 97% equity. So when I've bet big on that flop. I forget how much I bet. I retained, in theory, 97% of that money, right? And then on the turn was a deuce, if you remember. Now he's going to have way more equity because if an 8 comes, if a jack comes, if an ace comes, he'll make a full house, which beats my flush. But I would still be, there you go, 80% equity. So when the money went in pre-flop, I had 80% equity. When the money went in on the flop, I had like 97% equity. Then when all the money went in on the turn, I had 80% equity. So in both those scenarios with massive pots, I was, a 9 to 8 to 1 plus favorite in all those situations. One of them I lost, one of them I won. But the individual facts or the individual hands matter less because as long as you know that, okay, I'm getting my money in with the best hand most of the time, you're going to be a winning player over your career. Okay, I need to stop talking now. See you, dude.